Hey. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to give you guys a minute. I want to do like the prophets do and say, come on in, 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 come on in. Tag three people, it's going to bless your life. It really will, though. But tag three people, it's going to bless. Come on in, come on in. So I'm going to give you guys time. Tag people, share this. Call a couple people, send a pigeon if you need to, but we're gonna wait and give you guys a couple of minutes to invite your friends in. We're gonna have a great conversation, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm gonna be watching on the other end to see when I'm ready to begin. Let's see. Come on in. Comment when you get here. Let me know you're here. Let me know you care. Okay, I see you. I see you tagging people. Pastor Bradford, I see you. Hey, Pastor Lyles, good to see you. Where is, let me see. Do I see our live? I see our live. Okay, I see you. I see you. We're just going to give it a couple of more minutes. Couple more minutes. Hey. I guess we can go ahead and start our round robin in a second. It's just going to be an either or, just an either or. Hey, Jen. Let's see who else. We're going to have a good time. This is going to be so easy because it's people I love, easy conversation, so much wisdom. So I'm looking forward to it. So every time I have a tough webinar and I'm not sure it will sell, I mean, usually it ends up, the lowest attendance we've had in webinars this year has been on children's ministry. Like, that's really not good, but it's true. I'm wondering how people are going to respond to a webinar on care for pastors. Like, I wonder if that's something people care to hear data on, like really care to hear, kind of like where pastors have been in the pandemic. I mean, we've had pastors, and we'll talk about it soon. We've had pastors who are saying, I wasn't called to this season of pastoring. Like, this is not what God didn't call me to be a digital pastor, so I got to go. So I have a couple things to say about that. Okay, I see y'all in here. So we're going to start with a little round robin. We can all go just a couple of questions that we're all going to answer. And we're going to start off with something simple like cake or pie.
Cake.
What you got?
Yes.
Okay, you're already on my nerves today. Look at you.
Listen. You asked the question. I answered the question.
I said cake or pie.
Yes. Why do we have to distinguish when God has given us multiple gifts?
See, this is what I'm not going to do with you. See, oh my gosh. Are you too churchy for a round robin? Chocolate or vanilla?
I like both.
You got to choose one. So for me, mine is cake. Okay. You still not going to answer?
You're asking me chocolate or vanilla. In what?
Chocolate or vanilla? Just in general. Why are you doing this to me, Philly? Why?
Chocolate.
Thank you.
Chocolate.
Okay. Chocolate. Pizza or burger?
Pizza.
I think I'm a pizza guy too.
Really? I'm a burger person. Winter or summer?
Winter. I live in Texas.
Right, which is like somebody else's spring. What you got?
It's easier to dress in the winter for me. So winter.
It does cover up my chunky days so much better. Okay, I got y'all. We're gonna start. I just want to do a little round robin. I'm gonna give you guys. Well, I'm gonna pseudo introduce you guys, and then you can introduce yourselves. If you've just come in, don't forget to share this and tag someone and call a friend and use the lifeline. Whatever you got to do, just get your people here. So I'm really excited to do Care for Pastors today. Before y'all try to roast me as if you don't know that I am pro woman, we did invite probably like 3 women. And I mean, it's just a busy season right now. Y'all know how it goes. And so they did have some obligations that made them drop out. We love them and we'll have them back. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do a free webinar where I share the data on women. And so you'll see all of them show up. So, but I am so happy to have here 2 people I love, I admire, I believe in. It makes this so easy. And I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. So Pastor Chris Wesley is my pastor baby brother. Chris is my pastor. Pastor Wesley is my pastor. And I think the beauty in all of this is that Antioch, the church he pastors, is my home church, right? But I think a lot of people, like I was telling my last check, she was talking to me about church. And I was like, yeah, you got to come to my church. Da, da, da. And she's like, oh, okay. And she's like, tell me about your pastor. And I was saying, oh, he's younger. And I said, oh, no. I said, oh, he's younger. And she was like, oh, well, what does he know? And I was like, say that again. What did you just say to me? Like, just not what you want. But I know that'll be something we talk about. I know that people imagine like your pastor's younger than you, but I think a calling is a calling and wisdom is wisdom. And I love it. It's been my best church experience in probably decades. And Pastor Chris will tell you, I love my church. I love serving my church. I love being at my church. And I am just so happy to be in this place when it comes to not my faith, but my church experience. And so I'm going to let him introduce himself. And then I have Pastor Philip Pointer, Dr. Philip Pointer. And I really love Philip Pointer, even though he's not good to me. And so Pastor Pointer, when we first met, we spent like a couple of years. No, I'm telling you, we spent a couple of years like just being like, hey, because he didn't like me very much and I didn't know what to do about it. So for years, let me tell you, when he invited me to preach at his church, I was honored, but I thought he was setting me up to fail. Like I was like, does he hate me that much that he wants to watch me flunk like in person? Like literally, I did not know why he was even calling me because I was like, I don't know why Pastor Pointer is like, Dr. Pointer hates my stinking guts. But he is like one of my favorite people, somebody I can confide in. I just absolutely love him. And so I'm glad to have them here. If you guys would just tell us a little bit about yourself, the name of your church, what you do, where you are in pastoring right now to kind of set us up for the conversation.
Like Dr. Big Sister said, my name is Chris Wesley. I have the pleasure of pastoring the Antioch Fellowship Church of Dallas. This February will be year 2, me being the senior pastor. I am the second pastor in the 35-year history of our church. My father was the founding pastor and pastored 33 years before he transitioned to the stands of heaven after a battle with cancer. I love what I do. I love where I do it. I'm honored to get to do it. I am living the dream. That's all I got there.
I agree.
I am Philip Pointer. You all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm Philip Pointer, senior pastor, St. Mark Baptist Church in Little Rock, Arkansas. Next year for me will be 30 years of preaching, 20 years of pastoring.
So you started at 7. Go ahead.
I wish that were the case, but I'm an old man now. I'm blessed to do ministry at St. Mark, which is a very unique and dynamic congregation. I stand on the shoulders of great predecessors, and so it's a wonderful place to do ministry. I'm privileged to work with an amazing team, to serve amazing people, and we really do our best to make sure that we're salt and light in our community, and we really are trying to make actual, real disciples of Jesus Christ. So it's what the old preacher would call a blessed burden. The work is challenging and difficult, and especially in this season, I'm sure we'll get into that more. But it's a blessing to see God work in the lives of people. So it's my joy. I am a pastor because God is gracious, not because I'm skilled or able. God's grace is what has given me this opportunity to serve God in this way and God's people. So, yeah, that's my story.
Well, I can say from experience that both churches like really have loving people on lock. You know, I like I remember thinking to myself, like, goodness, this is a loving church, when I was at St. Mark, like literally in every way. Like, sometimes churches can have great hospitality and don't have loving people. It's like this is a disconnect.
Mm.
Like, what happened? But it totally wasn't like that. And I tell people, and anybody who's heard me talk about my church will say, we will dust you on loving people. Like, ain't nobody gonna out love people in this city better than Antioch will. So I can say that. One thing I want to jump into really quickly is where we found ourselves in the pandemic. Of all the places, of all the experiences you could have, all the circumstances you could find yourself in, did you ever imagine a day when people could not walk into the church in droves uninhibited?
No.
Yeah.
There's no point of reference for this in our lifetime. In my father's lifetime, in my grandfather's lifetime, there, there's no way in the world we could have ever predicted, prepared, um, had a contingency in any way for not being able to gather in person. That's just it's unheard of. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I want you guys to go back with me to the night. I think we may have found out, was it a Saturday that we could not, most of us could not have church? Did we find out on a Saturday or a Friday? I know it was
Friday.
Friday. So I
I
want
will
to go
never
back to
forget it.
that. But before we do, has anyone thought about like where were the prophets? Why nobody like could foresee this or predict this or warn us? Like I have literally thought like, so God, you didn't tell nobody. So do you tell
So
him anything?
here's what
And why not?
here's what's crazy. Here's what's crazy. So for me, I preached on watch night a sermon. You know, I'm doing a new thing. Shall you not know it? The title of that sermon was "It Ain't Never Gonna Be Like It Was." And as I watched it some months ago, it's retroactively prophetic about what was going to shift in the pandemic. I didn't prophesy a pandemic. Don't misunderstand me. But
Yeah.
there were things that I'm thinking we're going to deliberately alter ministry, not knowing that God was going to alter ministry through that means. And so I don't know where the prophets were. They were predicting Super Bowls and World Series and stuff like that.
Fights and
Nobody,
stuff.
nobody told me we were going to become a church. That's what I
Right.
wish they
Man.
had.
Right. And that's actually what Dr. Fisher was saying, that prophets have been saying church would change. And that is true. And I guess maybe some things we shouldn't know. You know what I mean? Like maybe some things we shouldn't know. Take us back. When you first heard, well, both of y'all have really strong teams, but still, when you first, well, before they said church can't happen, did you imagine us being quarantined? Like I remember that like people started to use the word quarantine. I said, you can't make people stay in their house. That ain't gonna happen. Like I did not believe that, first of all.
I was picking up food one night and I was watching on the screen in the restaurant
Mhm.
the NBA cancel games. And at that moment I said, "Oh, this is for real."
Mhm.
Like I remember that. And I think that was a Tuesday or a Wednesday night.
Okay.
And I was like, Lord have mercy. That Thursday night, I remember getting a call from the mayor's office that said the mayor and county commissioner are doing a press conference at 9 p.m. They're shutting down all events. And I said, I don't understand. I did not understand.
Yeah.
Like, give me context. Nobody, I, if you have more, nobody can have an event with more than 500 people in a room at once.
It did start like that.
And I remember saying, well, I got two services and both of them exceed that number. So are you saying no more than 500 people in a building or no more than 500 people in a room? Because that's cool. I could put 500 in the worship center, 500 in the chapel, 500 in the multi-purpose center. No
True.
big deal. And they were like, and I remember the person from the mayor's office saying, no, this is different. And I said, okay. So I watched the press conference and I had to call an emergency staff meeting. Our office is closed on Friday. And we call an emergency staff meeting on Friday morning. And none of us in the room could even comprehend what they were saying. It was insane. I will never forget that as long as I live. Just trying to wrap our minds around what they were saying. Because to Dr. Pointer's point, like, we've never seen this. Nobody alive in our churches has seen this. It was crazy. I will never forget that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember. So the second Sunday in March was the last Sunday we got at St. Mark. So that was like March 8th. That Wednesday night we had Bible study. They told us going into that second Sunday, I remember getting up doing, the greeting kind of thing. And I said, hey guys, fist bumps and elbows, that whole thing. Wednesday night I said, don't touch, fist bumps and elbows. So go home Wednesday night. I was actually supposed to get on a plane Friday morning, go to DC. If you know me, I was raised in that area. One of my friends was being installed in the church there. It was a weekend. Listen, I had nothing to do, no responsibility. I was just going to attend the installation on Sunday evening. I wasn't going to Sunday morning church. I wasn't going to watch church on Sunday morning. I was just going to Sunday evening. Then I had 2 days 2 days before and 2 days after where I was just going to hang at home, just chill. It was going to be great. Wednesday night after Bible study, I think they put out the limitation. They asked our in Little Rock or Arkansas, they asked us to limit to 250, I think it was, or 150, one of those. So immediately we got on the phone. Our church is an elder-led church. That's our form of governance. With elders, we did an official action, took an official vote to not hold in-person worship with more than 150. So that third Sunday, I let our deacons and their wives in and some staff just to have somebody to preach to. Let me, I don't want to just preach to a camera. Let me have some folks to preach to. I did that. And if I love my deacons. I hope ain't none of them watching, but they ain't no help. They not. I need old ladies throwing their hats up and stuff like that. So preached that Sunday, and then I think later that week after that third Sunday, they took it down to 10 or so.
10. Yep.
So that's when it was just my skeleton crew, just musicians and singers and tech. And everybody was distant, separated, all of the above. And we have been in that space since the fourth Sunday in March 2020. We were planning on the great reunion being Easter 2020.
Right.
Yeah.
At the latest.
We'll be back on Easter. It'll be great. Then it was like, well, we'll start on our church anniversary. That's second Sunday in June. We'll come back on the church anniversary. It'll be a great time to say, come on home. Good to see. It's been a couple months. Hug here.
Yeah.
No. Then we were saying maybe watch night.
Yeah.
maybe watch night 2020, maybe. And I mean, just never would have thought that, first of all, that it would happen. But then when it did happen, never would have thought we would be 19 and 20 months out.
Right.
With this persistent pandemic. And we can ad nauseum talk about why it's persisting, but yeah, that's been my story with it. It's unprecedented, like I said before, and nobody's an expert in how to manage it.
Yeah.
You can't be an expert in what nobody in your lifetime has experienced. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a lot of people calling like, this your time, put something out. And I was like, no, like First of all, what do I put out? I'm in the middle of a study, number one, like that I needed to focus on. Number two, I think when we got shut down, I had an engagement that weekend, and that was supposed to start 2 months of me being gone so much that I would have only been home no more than 48 hours consecutively. Like it was about to be a run. And I knew I was too chunky for that. Like I was not physically, you know what I mean, ready to be moving like that. And I mean, I had a lot of thoughts about that. But I remember saying, no, I need this time to rest. You know, like I really don't want to be the standout. And anybody who says they can be the standout right now is lying. You know, like we just don't have it. I'm just putting out an ebook in hybrid ministry and digital discipleship at the end of, well, right after my book comes out in December, because I it wasn't realistic, you know. I think we all felt a little burnout in the beginning because everybody had a live something, a Zoom something, you know, there I feel like they worked the heck out of us in the beginning, you know, and then things started to settle. But when did you get to the place where you realized you had to take care of yourself differently in the pandemic?
So my context was a lot different. And here's why I say that. My dad died November 13th, 2019. So from November 11th, 2019 until February 9th, which was the day Antioch elected me to be pastor, I was juggling between caring for my family, navigating through grief, and trying to get the church through the vote. So I'm preaching starting the first Sunday in December. I am grieving. I'm handling all these things. So February.
Wait, real quick, Pastor Chris, because I was up there the other day. Jim was like, Bree, it's so good to keep seeing you over here. And I was like, knock it off. But I was up there the other day during a funeral. And I said to Adrian and Ian, I said, how long Pastor Chris been doing funerals? They said, right away. Is this true?
Dad died Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
I had to eulogize a member Friday or Saturday.
I just can't even imagine.
But even then, when he was out with the first bout, I picked up a chunk of those preaching duties starting in 2018 when I came back to Antioch. So all of 2019, I was doing eulogies.
I remember.
Like this is all.
And don't forget, that was not one. That was Kahie's.
That was like in one funeral, like my youth pastor, his wife, his daughter in one funeral, and then on and on and on, all 2019. And then, so it literally was a bookend. He was in 2019. So like Samuel Booker, 2019, who was the deacon that named the church. All this happened in 2019.
Miranda Bailey's dad, it was last year, so I knew you remember him from forever. I just can't imagine like you didn't stop.
Dad died Wednesday. I did a funeral for Tia's grandmother that Saturday.
Okay.
So like literally, they hadn't even covered the chair yet. You know what I mean? When I was already. So February 9th, I'm already. They did the vote on February 9th. I was off on the 16th. I took the 16th and I told them, y'all, I need a minute.
Good.
The other side to that coin was I watched Pop do so much when his body was trying to tell him to stop. I came in saying, not me.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna happen to me. So I said that to say, like right before pandemic hits, I don't feel burnt out. I feel like I'm hitting my stride.
Okay.
It's been a month. Pop being on since November. I've been the pastor for a month. I've kind of figured out my daily schedule and rhythms, figured out when I'm meeting with who, what I'm doing, seeing people in Bible study, trying to navigate the church through grief while I'm navigating through my own personal grief. I feel like I'm finally finding a rhythm. And right as I'm getting to a point of finding a rhythm, boom, everything shuts down. So I'm not burnt out at the top of it. I'm ready to run at the
Yeah.
top of it. And now I'm having to flip what that looks like. Burnout for me, honestly, didn't hit until the top of 2021,
Same here.
where it was like, I have been doing, there's no book on this. I'm throwing everything to the wall to see what sticks. I
Mm-hmm.
am having to reshape our staff and staff culture. I'm having to build out a healthier staff model because at the time when I came in, our staff was extraordinarily undermanned and and overworked. So like the example I use in church, within our church was that it's crazy to say it, but our congregational care pastor is in his 50, late 50, early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. And he is also at the time the children's pastor.
Oh wow.
Perry was doing
Yeah.
congregational care and children's ministry.
And let me
Ain't
give you context. He was my children's pastor.
so it's
I mean,
like
I'm
he
very
brought
young,
us
but that gives
all
you
up.
context.
He brought us up in the
Yeah.
church. And so it's like I cannot put my staff through that during this season. So
Yeah.
we're hiring, we're bringing people in transition. We got all this transition going. It wasn't until the top of 2021 that I realized I'm running on fumes. I'm easily irritable. And you remember, sis, that's the first time I took a month.
I do
I
remember.
I in our church, it was my dad would never. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I
He
know it's
would
so
never.
funny because they just named a part of a street after our pastor and Pastor Chris's dad, and somebody was saying, "Man, he would be so happy right now." And I'm like, "What, Pastor Wesley? Y'all know he
No,
would have been
no,
like,
he
y'all
wouldn't
got
either.
bigger fish to fry. What are y'all doing trying to get
What are
something
y'all
named after me?"
doing?
And maybe I'm wrong, but I do not think he would have been like, "Oh yeah, like
That's so
that's
nice.
not,
No, he wouldn't.
yeah,
He didn't like his name in lights. Like there's a lot of stuff that like he just wasn't doing.
yeah,
And he might take 2 weeks. The older he got, he and mom would take 2 week vacation. He would be gone 2 Sundays in a row. And I'm not gonna say that because that's gonna sound petty. But like he built it out to where they would miss him when he got back. He couldn't he set up the schedule to where he would be missed when he got back.
uh-huh.
And so it was a paradigm shift for our church. But I realized I was burnt out. Digital services burnt me out. I think I was doing 3 or 4 recordings a
I know.
week. And like, nah, man. So my paradigm was a little different because when the pandemic came, I was ready to run. By
Yeah.
2020, 2021, it was like, nah, man, I'm burnt out. So I see
Yeah.
somebody in the comments, somebody got a therapist. Absolutely. I was in therapy before, but yeah, he got a lot of my money during 2020 and the top of 2021.
Yeah, no. I totally get that. And everybody's talking about how it okay, first of all, Dr. Fish is trying it. I'm very young. Thank you, man of God. Second of all, everybody's saying, like, yeah, it hit 2021, it hit. I think I remember a couple of things happened. I think yours hit, if I remember correctly, Philly, at the end of 2020. You were like, no more lives. Like, I don't do them anymore. I'm done with
Well,
them.
yeah. So the whole month of December we recorded, and I
Okay.
sat home. That's why I got fat again, like real fat again, because I sat at home eating cookies and enjoying eggnog, watching, because I don't get to binge watch show. Everybody talk about binge watch show. I don't get to do that.
Well,
I
wait
don't
a
get to
minute.
do that.
Wait a minute. What
My
exactly did you
time.
binge watch? Murder She
I
Wrote?
don't, yes, Murder She Wrote,
He watches
which
this
I'm going to
stuff.
always watch. Leave me alone about it. I love it. That's my Angela Lansbury's my girl. Let me alone. But I don't even remember what I was watching. I just was I was taking advantage of it. So December was just I sat in my recliner and then went upstairs and went to bed every
Yeah.
day. That's all I did. Um, Caring for myself differently. I don't know how to describe that. What to say about that? I don't. I've never had a rhythm of life. I've been preaching since 14, on the road in some way since maybe 15 or 16, and then pastoring since 24. I've never had a rhythm of life. When I started pastoring, um, 3 years in, we merged with another church. Shortly after that, started doing school again in the midst of finishing one degree, starting a terminal degree. I moved my family from the DMV to Little Rock, Arkansas, while working on a terminal degree. I've never had a rhythm of life, and still been on the road. Never had a rhythm of life. Never had a self-care um, routine or
Yeah.
habit. It was as needed and as available. And to my great shame, it was based on, to the point where you're going to lose it. I'm at the end of the rope. I tell people all the time, I don't know what it is. I really can't remember. This is sad, but it's my truth. I really can't remember what it is to have a full tank. So
Man,
I'm somewhere teetering between quarter tank, half a tank, and E. I'm somewhere, but I can't remember what it is to have a full tank. That's been many moons, maybe when I was 13, 14 years old. Um, so, caring for myself, being still, even when I would take time to not go to church or not be revivals, whatever was happening, um, it was so far gone. When you're already exhausted, it's too late to rest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there was not enough time to fully restore. It was enough time to get enough to just keep going. So what 2020 was, again, not thinking we were going to be in it as long as we were, um, dealing with all that we dealt with, how many people I lost. And again, one of the first people to die in the state of Arkansas was one of my members, and I mean a good member, 42 years old, on my hospitality team, one of my van drivers, bright, affable, love Jesus, love our church. And then here's not just the grief of losing her, but then the pain of having to tell her family I can't bring her body in.
Oh
mm,
yeah,
To
because
the
we
point
didn't
where
know what that looked like at first, right?
they were
mm-mm.
saying the body could
No
fluctuate,
funerals.
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and then and then her mom struggling with that, sister who's not a member saying, after all she put in this church, you can't, and it's not even my call.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And not being able to navigate that. I've lost some of my best, kindest. We lost the senior elder of our church, and the elder led, Archie Ellis. We lost him this past year, um, to COVID, 89 years old, and I couldn't even have his funeral in the church.
Yeah.
Couldn't bring him in. Deacon John Parrish, the man. If you come to St. Mark, you hang around St. Mark. St. Mark is known for a lot of things: great choir, community outreach, dynamic ministry, and catfish.
Mm.
My chief,
I
my
didn't get no
my
catfish.
main two catfish fries gone. John Parrish, one of my deacons, and Tyrone, who's on my security team. Um, John Parrish, we opened up the scripture and prayer for my deacons, so they came and did that in an empty worship center, empty sanctuary. John Parrish comes to me the last time he's there and says, Pastor, I'm finally going to retire. He's 73. I'm finally going to retire. There's so much I want to do.
Oh.
Let's talk in the next couple of weeks. And 2 weeks later, he was gone. Not being able to celebrate him in mass as we should have or would have. That was trying. So, I realized more than my body needed rest, my soul needed
Yeah.
rest. And
Yeah.
and and, and so that, we talk about self care, and again, I'm like, uh, Pastor Wesley, man. I was a therapist prior to COVID, but it became much more necessary and valuable during this season. So your soul. I mean, nobody knows until you are responsible for people and you love them what it's like to love people and try to lead them, but you can't touch them and you can't see them and you can't visit them. That's trying to speak into their lives and can't see the body language that says, "Pastor, I got it."
Yeah.
That's hard. That's hard.
Yeah.
And I kind of, to that point, I think it's interesting because we are constantly surrounded by death and grieving. But there was something about the pandemic that forced us to grapple with it because we didn't get to just labor and soldier through it. So you're doing funerals, similar to you, Pastor. When I started preaching at 15, you preach and walk through grief and stuff like that, but there's something that even though your heart is tied to those families, you preach the funeral, then you got Bible study, then you got XYZ. So you learn how to just work through the grief. Whereas pandemic forced us to grapple with grief in a heavier way than we would pre-pandemic. And for the pastor, you realize that soul care is so much more important and essential because we carry stuff every day that normally knocks people down, that we become almost desensitized to because we see it so often.
Hmm.
And I think pandemic heightened the level of us having to feel and sit with that stuff in ways that busyness helped us to avoid.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's only so much busyness, right? People were buying from us, all of us, you know what I mean? And even from your past, it's like, well, Pastor, I know you be on the road. Pastor, I know you busy. Pastor, I know. But they were not giving you guys that during the pandemic. It's like, you ain't going nowhere.
But here's the thing: we were busier. I was at least busier
Lord,
But
in
you
2020
didn't get no excuse for that though.
because people assumed I wasn't,
Yeah.
and so they
because they
pulled on
weren't.
me more. Exactly. They're saying, "Oh, Pastor just sitting at home." Well, I'm sitting at home talking to 200 of y'all every day on
Yeah.
social media, on a Zoom, and the beat had to go on. So we still have to meet with staff some kind of way. We still have to design and market sermon series and Bible studies some kind of way. We still have to deal with counseling members some kind of way. And you know, I don't know. People talk about Zoom for their jobs, but we don't get off. It's 24/7 for us. Um,
Yeah.
and here's what I tell younger pastors all the time. People will say, "Pastor, we know you can't say yes to everything, and you can't be there for everybody every time." And they know it intellectually until it's their turn.
Yeah.
And when it's their turn, what they say they know and understand, they don't know and they don't understand.
Yeah.
Because when it's
Yeah.
my turn, it's okay for you to say no to everybody else.
To
Yeah.
them.
Because but for me,
But it's
it's
me.
me. It's me, and and those demands increased. The need for silence, and I mean the absolute need for. I mean, I've burned up my eyes looking at screens. The need for pulling my face out of the screen and just looking at a tree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something other than constantly being engaged in the digital space.
Yeah.
Having to deliberately care for yourself in that way is really what changed a lot of things.
Yes, sir.
And we all happen to be in southern cities where we get, some better weather to be able to at least exist. I know that was a thing for people who were in the east, you know what I mean? In the north, they were like, You know what I mean? We can't do outdoor worship. That's cut very quickly. You know what I'm saying? Like we can't enjoy the outside. We can't go, we're going to be snowed in soon. I mean, in all of this, I had to realize that we all have different circumstances in it, but we got to ask questions during the study. Dr. Fisher says that we have to adjust the model of this high profile, high functioning ministry to being from being human doings to human beings. And you would think people understood this better now, but I don't think they do. I think, like you said, it's like, well, for me, you know what I mean? Like, just do it for me. And people are talking about burnout and therapy and just being busier than normal, which are all truths. But when we ask questions about, like, do you feel called to do ministry at this time? Black pastors don't get to retire usually for financial reasons, right? It's either financial reasons or the ego, like it's hard to come down from being the pastor. Who are you when that's over? I don't know anything about sports. I don't know nothing about sports, but what I do, I like consistently is watch documentaries on athletes, because I'm really into discipline. What do you do to discipline yourself? And so I remember Larry Fitzgerald saying that he doesn't take a lot of perks. He doesn't skip the line. He doesn't take free tickets, because he said part of what football players have to deal with when it's all over is that, well, first of all, they have a helmet, so they don't get the same kind of attention that basketball players get anyway. And then once they're no longer playing, people don't give them those things. And they say it's just really difficult, and it messes with their mind, and it helps to increase their depression and, all that they're dealing with, and not being a, football player anymore. And I think it may be similar for pastors. It's hard to walk away from, hey, pastor, and everybody knowing you. And people say, I want to move to a different city. And they rarely do, because it's hard to let go of being the person everyone knows. But to see people who may not even understand what they're going to do financially say, I'm not called to this. I know I'm called a pastor, not for this season. Like, people were literally tapping out saying, I need to find a pastor. I need to figure out how to transition out, because God did not call me to this. Have you guys heard people say that? Like, I was called to this previous version of church. I don't know if I'm called to the future version of this.
I've heard it. Again, my paradigm is so different. I've been preaching since I was 15. I'm not a senior pastor until a month before the pandemic. I've been on church staffs for years. A month before the pandemic, I'm elected as the senior pastor. Then a month later, everything changes. And the thing that because anybody who knows me knows I'm not the social media type. I'm not the platform type.
You're your dad.
I'm not. I'm not the hey doc, and I've never been that type. I'm gonna be the ducked off one in the room. I have more of a a older mindset, if you will, an older. So we relaunched our young adult ministry recently on Monday nights, and I taught the first four. I've been a part of the teaching for the first 4 weeks, and I remember telling our executive pastor, "All right, I'm done. I don't even feel like I fit in the room, and these are my peers. Like I don't even feel like I fit there." So there's a part of me that feels like, yo, I'm 20 years too late, right? In a perfect world,
yeah,
I don't have to pastor in social media. I don't have to do virtual church at all. In a perfect world is different. But what I have to come to realize is the same sovereignty I preach about as it relates to God being sovereign and knowing when he placed me, why he placed me, where he placed me. Or when I preach that to a people, I got to believe that about me. Mm-hmm. I have to believe that God didn't make any mistakes in where and when he placed me, right? And so would I prefer a different set of circumstances and a different paradigm? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But if God placed me in this one, I got to trust that it's for such a time as this. Yeah. I will never forget. I had been me and another local pastor who I consider a sage, in our area. He and I have been trying to find a time to schedule to sit down for lunch. Finally, we get a time. It had to have been April 2020, a couple months after the pandemic. And I got a list of questions that I'm going to ask him when we sit down to lunch. So I go to his church, we sit down in his office, and we start to go over the things. And he stops me from asking him questions, and he starts asking me questions. He's
I
been a
know it.
pastor of this church for 30 plus years. And he's saying, I'm watching, you need to tell me how to navigate this. No, I don't know what I'm doing. And he tells me something that's so intriguing. He says, everybody that you look to is going to have to look to you because you're the only one that's connected enough to get this. So we need you more than you need us today. And
The
that made me
tables did
realize,
turn.
okay, Lord, this is why.
Yeah.
Now, would I prefer it? No. But I have to believe that the Lord put something in me to be able to handle it and navigate it. And I think sometimes, and me and you were having this conversation last week, sis, I don't know that pastors always believe the very things that we preach.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, yo, if I'm a turn to your neighbor and say God is sovereign, then I gotta believe for my own life and ministry that God is sovereign and He
Yeah.
knows where and when to place me, even if it's not in the way that I would prefer it. So
Yeah.
I've heard it, but I don't know that I ascribe to it. I think that's the cop out for this ain't as easy as I thought it would be.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
it's hard. Now, don't get me wrong, but I just think that's the cop out.
Yeah. I tell you one thing. One time I preached at 7 different churches in the weekend. First of all, that was embarrassing, and I was not gonna put up them flyers, right? And second of all, I was just done and tired. You know what I mean? Like by the and like a dummy, I was just sitting there recording back to back 7 sermons because they all had to be in, just trying to get the
Send
people
them
what they
in.
asked. And I'm just like, this is crazy, but so it's definitely not ideal. But you do have to kind of, go with the flow. But this is not as a pastor. I do have this question for you, Pastor Pointer, because I don't know as a pastor, but I can imagine. I can imagine that this pandemic has also probably worked in Pastor Chris's favor with some of the changes he would want to make and some of the
Well, very
conversations
much.
he doesn't have to have. Can you talk to us about how, not only in Pastor Chris's situation, but in a lot of churches, like people talked about, I had just been wanting to like update the technology. They were fighting me. They couldn't fight me then. I wanted to do this. They couldn't fight me anymore. Like, can you talk to us about some of the stuff that pastors got to
Right.
bypass?
So yeah, so I think I want to backtrack to your former question and say I did not hear anyone say to me that they were leaving the pastorate because they weren't called for the season. Heard of it but didn't hear it. But anybody who knows me knows my dream in life is to just be a church member. I have never been in my life just a church member. I've been a pastor's kid. I've been a preacher. I've been the preacher. I've been the pastor. I've never just been a member of a church. I'm going to drive the band or something, or maybe an usher. But I'm going to show people how to be a member of a church as soon as the Lord lets me out of this thing.
I was gonna combat that, but I must admit it is nice being just a member. Like for I have never pastored, but
no
I'll
idea.
tell you,
I
it is
have no
nice.
point of reference. I have no point of reference. So changes, opportunities, and I don't want you to lie to people. Just anything that you can say legitimately. Well, we have to because of technology, or we cannot because of safety.
Mm-hmm.
Things create all kinds of open opportunities to shift the church to move it forward and to create an environment that's going to be ready for 21st century ministry. The other thing is, and I promote this concept all the time. Israel Galindo, I recommend this book called Hidden Lives of Congregation. Israel Galindo talks about the life stages of a church. He talks about there is this stage that is this experimental stage, and then there is this peak or mature stage.
Mm-hmm.
If the church experiments, toward the middle of before its peak, it discovers discovering, it's trying to figure things out. He says when it gets to the peak where it's figured everything out, it's doing everything right, it's got all of its policies and procedures and ministries in order, that's the beginning of decline. And
Yeah.
when you look at the what many of our churches were in 2019, we were at a place of expertise, not experimentation. And that's why we were suffering, feeling decline, attendance trends, and involvement, enthusiasm. Many of us for giving, those things were declining, and God redeemed, in many cases, COVID environment to create for us the need for experimentation that then many of us saw growth and development. And a few pastors I've talked to had the experience of their offerings increasing significantly, those kinds of things, because it required innovation that there was no way you could just keep doing the same old thing.
Yeah.
And
Well, I don't know. We did get to see in
those
the data that a number of people kept doing the same old
well,
thing. And
that's
outside of
that's what
PPP,
I'm
when
saying.
this is over, I don't know if they'll be
Yeah,
able to last.
well, that's what I'm going to say. What I'm going to say is the people who just try to make a digital copy of a physical experience miss that that wave of growth. You could not just give them a digital copy of physical experience. There's no way to do that. I cannot rah-rah fix value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Content became king for preachers. I could not emotion you out of a bad. I couldn't turn a
Yeah.
corner and they put me in food and ain't it all
Talk,
right
man.
out of a bad sermon, out of a poorly constructed sermon. So it had to be content. It had to be, and people, again, God redeemed it. People became more content conscious
Yeah.
as they're watching and listening to church. Because it's easy in church to be distracted, to get on your phone, but if you're watching church on your phone, that gives me more of your attention, more of your time. So,
Yeah.
you know, and for those who were anxious to get back, I tell St. Mark all the time, we're just now getting ready to start in person again. The St. Mark we come back to is not St. Mark. Same Jesus, same gospel, same Holy Ghost and power, different processes, experiences, or the worship protocols, all of that. One of the things that early on I got in the pandemic in terms of a sense of things is, and I think I tweeted or something, we shouldn't be trying to go back to the church that we left. We should be trying to go forward to the church that God is calling to.
Yeah.
With that, let me add this piece of this little addendum. Those who are not engaged in justice, social, community conscious ministry,
Thank you.
God again redeeming COVID, put the spotlight on Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, to create a context where we had to, those who weren't speaking to it had to speak to it. And we cannot come back without that justice consciousness, which is inherent to the gospel and a part of the absolute necessity to do real ministry. Those of us who pastor Black folk in this country, if you don't come out of this with a consistent prophetic witness to the culture, then you have missed this moment that God has redeemed for us to get to where God is trying to take us. That's my sense. So not just changing stuff that you didn't like. I told my group today, your preferences aren't necessarily God's vision.
Yeah.
Not just because you don't like something, but things that are hindrances to the promotion of the gospel, to the creation of genuine Christian community, making lifelong followers of Jesus Christ, and impacting society and culture, speaking of justice. Those things are things that we need to be addressing, and pandemic allowed us to make these shifts in those ways. I hope that people are doing those things.
Yeah. It's funny you say, like, you got to go forward to the next thing. I keep telling people there's no new normal yet. We have to see what our next normal is, and then our next normal, and then our next normal. And at some point, maybe 3+ years down the line, we'll find what the actual new normal is. But what we did in the middle of the pandemic, Black Millennial Cafe partnered with Black Church Pack, and we did a survey. And for the first time, I saw Black churchgoers say definitively they would leave their church over something. And that was having a pastor or a congregation who can actively stand behind the truth that Black Lives Matter and want to participate in some way in advancing the cause for justice for Black people. I think it was like 43% said they would literally leave their church. We just didn't hear stuff like that. Black churchgoers are not willing to leave their church over much. Not like those types of moral
Yeah.
stances. Like, this is, when they'll leave over, well, shoot, I don't know what they leave over. Other than, like, if you like denying benevolence or something, I really mean it. They don't really leave over scandal. You know what I mean? It just depends on how you navigate it, but it's not a guarantee I leave over scandal. It's not, those things are not a guarantee. To see them say definitively, and this was, I think, the month after maybe George Floyd, the protest first began. And if you remember, they lasted for an extensive period of time. But to see them say that, so they said they would leave their church if their pastor, no, if they did not, that if they had to speak on it and support it in some way, whether that meant marching, rallies, funding, they were saying they would literally leave if they didn't. And let me say this, I have to be honest, I had to run the number for Pentecostals to see if Pentecostals stood in the same place, and they did. And I was really proud to see that, because we just don't get to see we don't get to see that. That just
We
doesn't happen
don't.
often.
We
Um,
don't. It was an opportunity, and I think it was in a similar thing. The pandemic forced us to have to sit there and see it. You know what I mean? And if you could see it and you not see the necessity to speak to it, you just like that's why people, because we know you see it. You got to sit here and watch this thing. You saw 8 minutes and 46 seconds. You saw it, like, and because you had to see it, if you choose not to speak to it, it means you weren't moved by it. Because the other thing about our preaching experience is it's moving. It's about stuff that moves us. And if that doesn't move you, if the plight of our people doesn't move you, that I think that's why we know you saw that, bro. Like, so you just gonna ignore it and not speak to it at all? We know you saw it. You know what I mean?
And and I think there's a margin of error that they would give, unfortunately, a white pastor in that space that they're not going to give a black pastor in that space. So contextually, there are folks in this area who, the white man's ice colder than ours, so they go to a white church and they let the white pastor say, "Oh, I'm discovering. I need more information. Teach me." But they expect the black pastor, and I expect the black pastor to speak directly to those, to have already been speaking directly to those issues. One of the things I told St. Mark when I first got here is you cannot consider yourself spiritual if you're not social. There is no way to talk about Jesus without talking about justice, and it is
Yeah, man.
inherent to the gospel, not an aside, not a part of, inherent to the gospel. This is Paul says what Christ did for us is justification. There is a, he uses legal language to talk about what salvation even is. And so, um, that's one of the most frustrating things is to try to see pastors, brothers and sisters who were just trying to continue to, it's going to be all right, you and your blessings coming 30 days. And I'm like, dude,
when they
man,
coming?
come on, yeah, 30 days, 30 days, turn around 7 times and get your blessing. I mean, just come on, they're literally killing us on camera without feeling
Literally.
reprisal. And if we don't speak to that, then I mean, turning your likeness for real, turning the preacher likeness.
Yeah, I agree with that. we did find out that pastors, and I was just doing an interview with the Justice Organization. They wanted to talk about where, the landscape of the church. And I did say this. Now I'm going to give people this much. Sometimes I think justice organizations talk in level 404 class when we need a justice 101. Some people are new to it. Some people just can't see it in the text. And I mean, we can say, how can't you see justice in the text? Well, have you heard some of these sermons? I don't know what they see in these texts some days, so we can't expect them. I don't even know. Some days I don't see what they see in the text, so I can't expect everybody to just get it. So I do think we do need a justice 101. That somebody needs to. We got to figure out a way to let people come in at ground zero, but there's no excuse for not being able to preach to the pain of your own culture. And that kind of blows me. We did find when we were talking about what pastors would be included and what church would be included in the State of the Black Church study, people were pretty pissed at me, to say it frankly. Like, I was like, oh, that's not a Black church. Oh, no, that's not a Black church.
Yeah.
Our church is a Black church. No, it's not.
Sure.
You started this, right? Sure. Sure. When we started this, when you started your church, you said it's going to be multicultural. It was going to be multi-ethnic. All will be welcome. Stay there. Like, you can't be a Black church when you want to be. And so we had to have parameters. Like, if you report to a white person, that's not a Black church. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're a campus pastor, and there's a white, that's not a Black. Like, we had to have a lot of, and people were upset. Like, I don't know why you're trying to keep us out of this. And I'm just like, what you say when you started your church? You were going to be intentionally multicultural. I'm sorry that it's only 4 people there and it's technically not that. But you're under a white organization, or that's who, put your money in, or you haven't reached your level of multiculturalism that you want to get to, and it's not as multi-ethnic as you thought it would be. That has nothing to do with us. You did not want to be a Black church until it came time for a study, and you just can't speak into this in the same way. I wasn't trying to keep people out of it. You know what I mean? Like,
True.
intentionally, but we needed pure data that we could actually stand on, which is how we know where people are on civic engagement, things like this. Last question. Because we did ask this question in the survey. Where are you on accountability after COVID? Did your accountability increase? Like, did you have different accountability partners? Are your accountability partners only preachers? Do you have accountability partners outside of that? Are your significant others accountability partners? Are your, do you have other executives who aren't pastors who are what does accountability look like now?
For me, from a personal standpoint, my tribe, the small group of people I do life with, I'm the only pastor in that small group of people I do life with. Because they know me. The benefit of my life is that I've been trying to live for Jesus for real. And there are people who have been walking with me as I've been trying to live for Jesus before I became the pastor, who know if I'm walking this out because of a title, if I'm walking it out because I'm the person that they know me to be. I think that's the beauty there. Again, my father died in 2019, and so I needed a pastor. So in the middle of the pandemic, I asked the pastor to be my pastor, and I'm able to kind of submit to his leadership in that context, which is really interesting because 2018, 2019, 2020, from a personal standpoint, I was walking through some of the toughest stuff in my life, grieving my father, divorce, on and on and on and on and on. There were a lot of things that I was trying to navigate through, including just grieving through the fact that nothing in my life looked the way it did a few years ago. From, job, relational context, nothing looked the same. Mm-hmm. Anonymity, I jokingly tell people 3 years ago, nobody knew who I was, and I liked it that way. Yeah. And, now, as 2020 was kind of happening around us, not only am I navigating through all the stuff that I'm trying to work through as a person, I'm having to do it in people's line of sight and vision. Like, people are trying to Google who I am. In every room I walk into, people are like, I know you. It's like, wait, no, you don't.
Right.
So I needed a pastor to, like, help me through this. But the other thing I will say about accountability is more recently than, and when I say recent, I mean really recent, over the course of the last few weeks, and you know, since you and I were talking through it, I do see the value of being around pastors,
Mm-hmm.
right? I do see the beauty of being around pastors. The struggle for me is, um, I don't count myself as a normal pastor in the sense of I don't do I don't do church stuff well. So, like, I don't do well, in church, they gonna get together and talk about other people, and you not have to see me about that. Like, I still got enough Oak Cliff in me that if I hear you said that, then you gonna have to see me about that. So I don't really run in
I
church like that
know. I'm
because
very concerned about an encounter with someone
pray
that you'll
in the
have.
Holy Ghost. You hear me? Pray in the Holy Ghost. Still, I told Bible study, y'all, I wanted to fight. I was mad. There was a part of me that was mad that the Lord didn't let it happen. Right? So, like, so so I've always shied away from pastoral circles,
Yeah.
but I really see the benefit of having some accountability with people who get it. The problem is, for me, very few get it because very few people walked into it like I walked into it with what I walked into it with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So inevitably, you might have the title, but there's going to be part of some people, which is why I've lost certain people on the way, that say he shouldn't have that, I should.
Of course.
Right? And so there's that whole thing dynamic, which is why it's been really interesting for me to navigate into pastor circles, because people will say, well, you only got that because,
Because this is
and
what
it's,
God had for me always. And because I was always going to
yeah,
have this. And because no matter what else happened, I would be here. That's
yeah,
why.
well, you don't have this and he can't do this and he that or whatever. And it's like, well, no, I'm very confident in who the Lord made me to be. And so finding brothers who are like, bro, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're a brother, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of been a newer thing. And by God's grace, man, recently the Lord has just been sending brothers in my life who are like, nah, bro, I love you and I don't need nothing from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want anything out of you. Now, of course, that's a small group, but like, it's the Lord's doing it. He's putting me in rooms around people who I really believe that about,
Mm-hmm.
and who really are kind to me in that way. So that's really what's changed for me in pandemic more than anything else, because my friends who know me for me and who want me to want to see me be well for me are one thing, but they'll never understand why I'm so pissed off about virtual again, or
Yeah.
why I had a breakdown today going to the pulpit, or but there are some people, some brothers and sisters who get it, that I can vent to that about. And so I'm learning the necessity of those pastoral connections. And as introverted as I am, I'm in the space of now trying to seek those out with some people, that I feel that I can be connected to. Now, again, as you know, that's hard for me because I am good at staying in my bubble and in my box, but I really do feel the Lord tugging at me to do more of that.
Yeah. And I always say this, it's what you saw. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't see a flashy daddy who was everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Who was moving. Like, Pastor Wesley was very comfortable being home. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
home was enough. And everything home provided was enough. And so it is a different world, because some people were always looking up to the one who was traveling all the time and jet setting, and not that he wasn't capable of it, but he made decision early in ministry how he was going to operate, to be a local pastor, and you
But
just
he
weren't living
said
up to
that.
that, so it's different.
And he said that I want, he told the church this, I want to be a partner to my spouse, a parent to my sons, and a pastor to the sheep in that order. Traveling and being an evangelist was not on his radar. When me and my brothers were young, he decided I would rather miss going to somebody to preach for a revival. I would rather miss that than miss my son's games. So
Yeah.
that's what I saw. And I tell people this, Antioch takes good care of me. I
Mm.
don't need, because the other reality for a lot of
That is
people, and
true.
this is why pandemic hurt a lot of people. Because if they not getting those honorariums, they still trying to figure out how they gonna feed their family and keep
Yep.
their lights on.
Yep. Yep.
And so there are a lot of pastors who are really struggling because that was supplementing an income for them.
Yep.
I'm blessed that that is not my narrative. If I ever have a need, I pastor the greatest church in the world. They are not going to let me be out like that.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. And so because of that, it's like, I don't really need that for what
Yeah.
a lot of people need that
That
for.
is true.
A
It's
lot of
not
people
always
rub
ego.
shoulders. Yeah, a lot of people rub shoulders in those rooms to get invites. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not
That's
going to
true.
convention doc you so you'll invite me to preach. I don't need it. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, but now I'm understanding that even in that, everything ain't for something else. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I'm
And
grateful that the Lord is doing that.
that's the thing. I think Goody has to remind me of that. Even I think it was like a couple weeks ago, Philly, you had to like be like, no, he's just a good guy. Like, he's just a good guy. No, you know what I mean? Like not playing, not showboating. He's just a good guy. And I'm just like, dang, why am I like this? You know what I mean? Because I've seen it too much.
Because you've seen the other side. But that's why, and I'll say this, and I'm done. It's also good to have people who can tell you, especially for me, a young guy who doesn't run in those circles. No, stay away from that dude. Stay away from that lady. They ain't it. So, and Bree laughing because those are the conversations. It's like Bria introduced me. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm,
no, this is a good brother.
mhm.
This is a good person. Stay away from that one over there. Because
I do.
but that's why you need those pastoral connections so they can tell you, man, yeah, So that's
Yeah.
important too. So you
Right.
don't walk into an ambush. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Because you can't. And I think sometimes too, I was telling somebody, I think it was after we had all gone to lunch or whatever. And I was saying, well, I don't think they get it that my pastor baby brother is pure. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just didn't live this church life. You just weren't around like that. And so I think a good big sister keeps you from pain that you don't need to experience. And then I also have to know when to say, this is his, choice. There'll be times when you make choices I probably wouldn't even agree with. I'm like, no, just don't ever experience it. But when you do, and if you're hurt, I'm gonna be there. You know what I'm saying?
hmm
When that happens too, like I still got you. You still come back, and I think that's the.
hmm
I remember telling Dr. William Myers, he wrote God's Yes is Louder Than My No and the Irresistible Call to Preach. And I was telling him, I went to go see him. I called him. I think it was after Dr. James Cone died. I called him. I was like, hey. Oh, and Dr. Cannon. I was like, hey, can I come spend some time with you? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, everybody's dying and I'm scared you're going to die. And he was like, okay, baby, just come. Just come. And I was telling him thank you because there were so many things he wanted me to do that I didn't always do. He wanted me to go get an Ivy League PhD. I was like, I got kids to raise, like I gotta put that on hold. But he never gave up on me. You know what I'm saying? Like just because I didn't do what he wanted me to do. So I think a good big sister tries to like keep you from all the pain that I can. And then when you run into it, I got peroxide and band-aids and neosporin, and we still gonna be good again. I think that's important. And not because I've passed it, but because I guess I spent more time in the circles, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
at the same time, I also have other people in my life who have spent more time in the circles, you know what I mean? And so I'm grateful for those people, whether it is, I mean, I can name tons of people who I can call. I just had a call last week because I was very stressed about a lot of things. And he was like, hold on, I'll fix this. Give me a second, and made some phone calls for me. And everybody needs those people in their life. What about
For
you,
sure.
Pastor Pointer? What you got on accountability? How is that? Well, I know y'all have a tight knit group. Has that changed? Have you grown that group? Have you found another accountability partner in addition to the homies?
Listen, I'm old, so I have a pastor. John K. Jr. has been my pastor. I started pastoring at a certain point. My father, who is my father ministry in life, when I started pastoring, we decided he's going to be my dad, and I didn't be pastor. The man I trusted, man, he trusted John Jenkins. Been my pastor since that time. So that's going on 20 years. He has the right, and he has, to just tell me what's good. I'm submitted to his life. He gets in my business. He doesn't care the places I preach. He doesn't care the size of my church. He doesn't care about dancing my pet. He don't care. He cares about my character. He cares about what's best for me. 2 years ago, earlier St. Mark, I was in D.C. area. We went to go eat lunch. He looked me in my face and said, "Hey, buddy, you're gone too much." So I got on my phone and canceled the rest of my visit. I'm accountable to him. I have a circle. If you know me, you know us. You know Goodman, you know Parks, you know Antoine Hutchins, you know Kenny Riola, you know James Jackson, Nathan Scotus. Yes, I'm accountable to them. As a person, as a preacher, as a pastor, in every way. We don't have cut cards. We're not trying to impress one another. One of the things that we laugh about, but it's true, is you can't be great in our group. There's no such thing as greatness in our group. When you post your best day, like something great, you've done the best. We get on Goodman all the time. Every time he does a baby dedication, are you gonna claim this one? We just you can't be great in our group. You can't be great in our group. They talk about my belly. You cannot be great, and we are going to keep each other on target. And we're going to be there to support. If one of us is on for a conference or something like that, we're all on. We're going to be there. I mean, that's just how we roll. It's a gang. We come together as a gang. I'm accountable to them in that way. Then I have long-term accountability connections with big brothers, Corey Hodges in Salt Lake City, Utah, Ben Adams in Clearwater, Florida, who were preaching me and giving me opportunity, helping me grow before I was pastoring. They've been big brothers in my life for longer than I can remember. And they also have the right to say, "Little bro, no. Nah, you can't. Listen, I'm a grown man. I got grown children. Most people don't know I got grown children. But they have the right to be big brother in my life." And so in those ways.
Can I hold you accountable? Can I tell you that you foul and that?
Wow, what I did. Let's go. Let's talk about it in front of everybody. Come on, let's go.
What are you talking about, sir? Move along.
No, okay. I thought you were trying to specify.
If you were being foul, well, I don't need permission. I would call.
I
Hey, you raggedy.
You standing up in 2 conferences back to back, but I'm not going to be accountable to that. So
I feel like I heard about one of those stories.
Okay.
Yeah, Doc. Yeah. Stood us up twice in a row. The group, the brethren, the sisters, looking forward.
It was not intentional.
I'm coming. And I mean just integrity. You just want the word and character matters.
Thank you so much. Listen, God bless you. This has been a good night. Listen.
So can I tell you, I'm going to tell your pastor on you since he's on the line.
Okay, I want you to know, to make this clear, my pastor was coming with me on one of those. I don't want to throw you under the bus, but I'm just saying, we had stuff to do. Wow. It was ordination time.
Ordination week.
Hello.
Yeah,
okay, so I got a pass.
We were gonna drive down.
The pain in my soul to know that Pastor, I thought it was just your wayward member, but to know that you are complicit in the
Now,
agony and pain
I
like we
didn't know
felt.
I didn't know I was missing the fellowship.
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't know
oh
Don't
yeah.
that.
you do this now?
One thing we're gonna do is we're gonna eat.
Okay, but
We're
and
gonna,
let me
That's
make
it.
this clear. Everybody knows how much I like food, and I was willing to come and eat that mediocre Waco food.
but we found a place. We found a
Uh-oh.
place
Y'all
that
gonna
was
have to
worth
show me
the.
the place, cause
My daughter Gabby,
Kavara,
my daughter Gabby directed us to where
well,
it was
she would
worth.
know.
She knows. Thank you,
She would
Pastor.
know. Well, listen, I believe accountability is a thing. I also believe that I hope I do the work to make pastoring easy. I really do. I don't know what it is to be a pastor, and I don't really know if I'll ever know. Honestly, some days I feel like I will at some point, and some days I never want to do it. But some days I feel like I may still be called to do it at some point. Most days I still say I never want to do it, but I do pray the work that I do makes it easier because I don't think we're seeing what we've seen from white pastors, but I do think a day of reckoning comes for black pastors where we have to say, hey, we got to take care of ourselves. Hey, we can't let this kill us. Hey, you know what I mean? Like, I promise you, while your churches love you, they don't want to lose you. They don't. They just don't know how to love you well, but they don't want to lose you. So I pray that we all do our part to make sure pastors are cared for. We do have a webinar coming up. Well, we have one Thursday. So if you have not done your plan, I need to send y'all the link to Pastor Chris. If you have not done your 2022 hybrid ministry planning, I'm just gonna tell you, if you've done it without us, it's mediocre. Okay. I am saying let us help you level up. So go to irunbmc.com/webinars for that. That's on Thursday. And then on November 16th, we're gonna do a care for pastors where you can know the state of black pastors in this country, where you are, where your heart is, where just I want you to know you're not alone with whatever you're feeling. And so we're gonna run through
Mhm.
that data. We won't do models this time, but what I will do is share resources. So there's no perfect model. I can do a model around expectations that I have planned, but not on how to care for yourself. And I'm going to call in someone who has done that kind of work and the doctoral work. But I'm excited about it. And I just want to say thank y'all for having y'all here. Now I don't want to say thank y'all. Somebody was in my DM saying, I love your country accent. And I said, excuse me? First of all, I ain't never lived in the country. Okay, let's start there. Hello. But so thank y'all so much for being here and just for being good people and people I can count on and people who have encouraged my work. And I don't want to know life without y'all. I love having y'all in my life and I'm better because of it. And I hope at some point in y'all life I can work hard enough that y'all can feel the same. But until then, thank you for being who you've been in my life. I appreciate y'all. And I know, Dr. Pointer, you're in the middle of, working with your group. So I really appreciate you. And then I know, Pastor Wesley, you've had a full day. You just left the meeting to come spend time with us. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. And
My
so do
joy.
we have a release date on this CD?
Nah, not yet. We're
Okay.
gonna we're gonna put a single out in January though. So the recording went great. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited
Good.
about it.
Well, we're gonna support you, so let us know so that we can send it out to our whole email list. By the way, let me just drop this really quickly. I keep telling people this as much as I can, and I think at some point I'm gonna put out some kind of like marketing lead for churches. But churches, you have to have a way to talk to not just your members. People are like, "Yeah, we just cleaned up our membership." That's not enough. More people watch you than just your members. You need a way to talk to your
Yeah,
members, and it can't be Facebook. So figure out what you're gonna
yeah,
do, what kind of lead you're gonna release so that you can get the right people on your list. And anybody who's circling in your um realm of influence in ministry, you should be able to talk to them outside of social media. So I really hope you
yeah,
guys do that. Everybody should have a network. When I was doing book deals, they were talking to me and they said, what's your influence, what are your networks? They didn't care about me saying, oh, I'm a part of this group and that group. They want to know my numbers. They needed to know that I had 20,000 plus people I could talk to. They wanted to know these things. And so churches, I would not be surprised if they wouldn't start asking these questions when it comes to loans as well. Everything that happens in
Mm-hmm.
the other deals will eventually come to loans. And so
Yep.
we've done what we could to give you data to be able to take to the bank and cash it. Please know your actual network. The people in your church, that's not your network. That is too limited. Your network is
Yeah.
outside of that. Speaking of that, I just saw Crystal McDonald, or Pastor McDonald now. So I want to tell you guys that
Pastor
I'm
Chris.
coming up. She
Pastor
is
Chris.
indeed. She is indeed. So I want you guys to know in January, we're coming up with the online pastor boot camp where we're going to train your online pastor 3 days in a row for 90 minutes apiece. And so that'll be coming out sometime this month. And the Black Millennial Profile will be released by next Tuesday. And it is the first study we've had on Black millennials and faith that includes physical and sexual abuse. And so we're going to do a data
Wow.
dump. We're giving it
Wow.
all to you, all the ministry stuff, all the stuff you need to understand who. Just kind of get a picture of Black millennials. But for the first time, we're going to release that data on sexual and physical abuse. And it's heavy, but I'm excited to be able to provide
It's
it so that we
needed.
can do the work we need to do to get there.
Very much
By
so.
the way, is that the new watch? Is that the new Apple Watch, Philly?
It's just a band. It's just a band.
Oh, okay, the new
It's just
band. I was
a,
like, I just saw that
just,
band. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank y'all so
The
much.
watch
Thank
is
you for
old. The
joining
band is
us.
here.
You said what
Yeah.
happened?
I said the watch is old. The band is here. That's all.
Oh, okay. I see you got that big face. That might be because you but
It's the small
thank you
face.
so much.
Why do you do this? It's the
Thank
small
you so
face.
much for joining us. God bless you guys. Don't forget to tag someone, even though this is over, so they can go back and watch it and share it. Other than that, we're logging off. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, y'all.